This slideshow describes how to achieve very successful, people-intensive change in organizations. Indeed, the success rate we have found using these techniques is on average greater than 90%.
For many years, organizations have used very logical, top-down project and program management methods that seem to do all the right things, but so often they fail to deliver the desired outcomes. The track record is truly appalling across a whole range of big changes that impact on large numbers of people. IT and process redesigns, culture change, and mergers and acquisitions all suffer huge failure rates. And even today, organizations attempting major business change use these same traditional approaches. If you talk to program managers running large change programs, I think they'll all agree that something fundamental is missing. They do their best, they're bright people, they're very logical. They recognize that a lot of the things that they are attempting to improve, putting in a bit extra communications, getting better change managers, project and program managers, various incentives and more technology, these are all tinkering at the edges. We're somehow missing something very fundamental. It's almost like we need organizations to put a light bulb on and illuminate some of these dark shadows of change. Something fundamental is missing. More than 10 years ago, we began looking for the key missing ingredient in organizational change. We focused on identifying the real change agents, the people who could really influence colleagues in organizations. These individuals, we're looking for the individuals who were by nature innovative, at least open-minded on change, and crucially, were very influential with colleagues, sideways and downwards in the organization, not just upwards. We found that on average only about 5% of all employees have the potential to be these real change agents. And possibly more importantly, we found that only about 15%, that's 15%, of user representatives on change programs today are these key individuals. This was really an early clue to the missing ingredient in organizational change. Over the years, as we began working as interim change managers on many large change programs, we began to identify these key influential people, these key change agents, and use them in change programs. And this led us to a quite profound fundamental insight that, in essence, senior managers can stop major change happening, but they can't implement it on their own. If they haven't convinced and brought on board and used very effectively the key influencers, the key change agents in their organization, their program and project management efforts will largely fail. But the biggest single breakthrough we came across was when we looked at where these key influencers were in the organization. And this came as a very considerable surprise. Most of them were clustered around middle, lower ends of the organization. They didn't follow the management hierarchy. They weren't a wonderfully even democratic pattern across the organization. They're all clustered. These were individuals who'd been in the organization 3, 4, 5 years. They were good at their jobs. They basically were the people that made things happen in organizations. And most of them weren't in the management hierarchy at all. This was profound. This was a real first major insight we had into the missing ingredients as to why change fails. At a very early stage, we recognized it was important not just to rely on 100% samples or representative samples to identify these key influences across organizations. And the reason for that was that, in essence, we were concerned about people who were change negative or couldn't care less, voting for friends and family in many cases, and distorting the results. So we started with a two-stage process that basically identified through questionnaires those people in the organization who were considered to be innovative by nature, and then brought them into the room and asked them who the real influences were. And by adopting this approach, we found that in practice, the people we were working with on change programs were very much more, a much higher percentage, the sort of people we were looking for, the real change agents in the organization. As time went by, we got more and more sophisticated in our use of software tools to help us analyze what was really going on with influencers and influence networks. And if you look at this slide, the very small circles are individuals. In this case, we have their initials inside the little circles. The broader circles made up of small inner circles are color-coded by area or department. And this gives us a pretty good overview of the patterns of influence across organizations. As you can see, a number of the little white circles there are people are not influential at all, whereas others are heavily linked into others and have lots of influence both within their own areas and across different parts of the organization. So essentially we've moved up a level of sophistication when using these tools. Not only do we know the weight of influence of individuals within the organization, but also where they influence and who they influence across organizational boundaries. The software we used also allowed us to actually investigate individuals in greater depth by simply clicking on one of the little circles with indicating an individual in the previous slide. We can actually bring up that individual's network of influence and even those people that are influenced by the people that are influenced by this individual. So we can get quite sophisticated in this, but generally speaking we limit it to 1 or 2 levels of depth. The real value of this comes where we're looking at individuals to use on change teams, on steering committees, on change communication teams. And we're looking for combinations that reflect influence across different areas of the organization. So in this particular slide we can see that the far left individual who works, I believe, in green area of the organization, also influences a strong influencer in the blue area of the organization. So we can begin by using this sort of techniques to do a process that we call walking the networks. We walk through the networks looking for individuals that are highly influential across different areas of the organization that we can use effectively, or at least are candidates for use, in change teams of different sorts during change programs and other change activities in the organization. Over the years we've used these influencer techniques for change programs involving many tens of thousands of individuals in organizations. And we've come up to highlight, if you like, 3 main elements that we see as being crucial clues to what's going wrong with change programs. First of all, just the bold fact that on average less than 1/5 of all managers are both innovative and strongly influential with colleagues. In other words, these are the real change agents in organizations who are also managers, and we're talking about less than 1 in 5. If we're being slightly more generous and we include the managers who are also open-minded, that figure goes up to 40%. So the open-minded and the innovatives who are also strongly influential colleagues, it's about 2/5 of managers. So it feels all right. But if you look at it in terms of a change situation, then you're more than half the managers are not in this category. And again, you begin to see why you might end up with the nominees on change teams who are also key change agents being less than 15%. So looking back over the last decade at organizations we've helped to implement change with, I've highlighted 5 here, which include some of the biggest, most widely regarded successful change programs over that decade. I think you can see from the figures on the slide that we're not talking about marginal change here. We're talking about 100% productivity improvements. We're talking about major change programs delivered on time and on budget. And we've delivered cultural change using these techniques that include subsequent Best Place to Work awards. So the overall pattern of success is quite profound. And this is what we typically find. I mean, overall, we're using these influencer networks. We're finding that we can achieve a 90% plus success rate in achieving business objectives against change programs. This is absolutely profound. And it's not the sort of patterns or the techniques or the sophistication that we expected 10 years ago when we started this process. But we believe we've made a major step forward in making major change happen effectively in organizations.